Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video on a new board game channel called Instant Gameplay. My name is Sean, and I'm going to be taking you on a board game journey from this first video all the way until whenever I decide that I'm going to end this channel. Hopefully that's not for a very long time. I've been in love with board gaming for years upon years upon years. Now I'm not talking about games like Monopoly and Clue and Yahtzee and Sorry. Those are mass market games, and although those are okay and they have a place within the gaming hobby, that's not the kind of games that I play. When I talk about gaming, I'm talking about games that you would find at a local gaming store. Games like, for example, and this is not what this is about, so there's no spoilers here, but games like Settlers of Catan. That was one of the first modern designer board games I ever played, and although I still love it, not quite going to be what this video is about. Today, to kick off this great channel and hopefully to bring you guys some great entertainment, I've seen people do this with a ton of different variations. I'm going to be doing my top 50 board games of all time. And this is going to be a 5-part series, and the first part is going to be numbers 50 through 41. So I've got the games just off camera here, and I'm pretty sure that throughout the list of all 50, I'm pretty sure I have all 50 of the games. I haven't quite looked at the list that much because I like to be surprised just as you guys do. So I don't look at the list of each section until I put the games right off of camera so I can grab them and show them to you. So I'm pretty sure I have all of the games. There might be a couple that I don't own just because of availability right now. The other reason I'm doing this is because I need a good distraction because right now it is October of 2020, and 2020 has been a pretty weird year. With COVID-19, we're in the middle of an election year. It's just been a very interesting year. Some things good, some things bad. A lot of things seem to be not going, a lot of people's way this year, but I'm hoping this channel can bring some people some entertainment, as well as bring me some entertainment in doing this. I had a YouTube channel years ago that I did, and I got a lot of enjoyment out of it, and I thought maybe this would be a good time to bring back a YouTube channel. So, Instant Gameplay, top 50. Let's take a look at the list, and let's start with number 50. Alright, number 50 on my list is a game that not a lot of people seem to know about. In fact, I can only think of myself and one other person that I know that actually owns this game. And although it's not very popular, and I don't seem to find any YouTube videos on it of good instructional videos, maybe I'll do a video on that, I still love it. But because it doesn't get played a lot because nobody really knows it, that's why it hits number 50 on the list, and that is Little Circuses. This game is awesome. I love this game. And in this game, you are taking on the role of a circus owner, and you are trying to battle everybody else as they are also circus owners. The trick to this game is that there is a board. So you've got a board in front of you that has that you're building your circus with different tiles, and there's different attractions on each one. They cost different amounts of money, and also, there's other aspects of the game that I enjoy as well. Each tile does something a little bit different, so you have different abilities that you can do throughout the game, such as creating more tiles, attracting audience, because you have to make sure you're attracting a good audience to your circus, because that's how a circus measures its success, by how much money and what your audience thinks. You can turn your audience into money, which is great. But the real cool thing about this game and why I love it so much is there is a track and different rounds, and each round you're going to be able to do several different actions, but some rounds you're going to be able to do more actions than others. There is basically 2 lists of actions you can do. You have lists from action A, a list from action B. In most rounds you can do one from both, but some rounds you can only do one action from one of the lists, and you have to pick which action you're going to do, knowing that if you pick an action from this list, from list A, you forfeit all the actions on list B, which is such a cool mechanic. No other game that I can think of does that, which I love. There's also some special ability cards that you can throw into the mix. There's an advanced version of the game. This is published by IDW Games, and it's just an awesome, awesome game. It's 1 to 7 players. There is a solo mode. I haven't tried it yet, but maybe I'll do that on the channel. It plays in 30 to 45 minutes, and it's ages 10 and up. My daughter, I have a 9-year-old daughter, and if you ask her, this is one of the games she asks to play this one quite a bit. She loves this game. And all those reasons is why Little Circuses is my number 50. My number 49 is a really great family weight game involving gardening, which is not a hobby that I personally enjoy, but it's not the type of gardening you're thinking of. So let me just show you. It is my number 49, Takanoko. I really shouldn't tip the games like this. I can hear the pieces shifting. I don't know if you guys could hear that. But Takanoko, the version that I have is by Matago Games, and this particular game is, let's see if I can get a player count. Oh, it's for ages 8 and up. It plays 2 to 4 players, and it plays in about 45 minutes, and I feel like those 3 things are completely accurate. I've had this game for a while. It was one of the first games I got when I really got into the hobby, and it's a really great family weight game. Again, my daughter really enjoys this game. I've gotten other people to play it. When I say it's a gardening game, it's really not a gardening game. It is, but it's not. There's a gardener, and he's growing bamboo in a garden, which you are building with these hexagonal tiles. And along with growing the bamboo, there's also a panda that's coming around and eating the bamboo. And you get points based on different cards that you draw from 3 different decks that tell you what type of bamboo the panda wants to eat, per se. And also what type of, how high the bamboo needs to be and what color for the gardener, because you actually are stacking 3-dimensional stalks of bamboo in different colors. And then also you can score points based on what color hexes are joined together in different patterns on the board to be the garden. So the board starts as just 1 tile and you are actually building it as you go. It's a really, really great game. The reason it's a little bit lower on the list would be probably just because we don't get it to the table as much as we used to. When I first got this game, we got it a lot. It is at ages 8 and up. It is probably a good family weight game. As my daughter's gotten older, she's been able to play more heavier games, so that's what we've been playing lately. So that's probably the only reason this really sits lower on the list at 49. But again, it's a really, really great game. It's still available, as far as I know, to get. I don't think it's out of print, or if it is out of print, maybe this version's out of print, I'm not sure. As far as I know, it's still available. There's also an expansion, which I don't own, I've never played, but I've heard it's pretty good. But this game is amazing. So again, my number 49, Takanoko. My number 48 is the first, I don't want to say heavier game on the list, but probably my first story-based game on the list. Well, it's definitely my first story-based game on the list. And that is a game by Plaid Hat Games, number 48, and that is Stuffed Fables. I love story in games. I think that it drives the game so much further when there's a really good story. And I know when you're looking at this, you're like, dude, you're like in your late 20s. Why are you playing a game with stuffed animals on the cover? Well, let me tell you. First of all, this is an adventure book game. So the board is actually a book. And you flip through the book and you play out these different stories. You are playing as a bunch of stuffed animals that are protecting a little girl who is sleeping. It is a really cute game, but the story is fantastic. You are running into different obstacles, you're running into different enemies, and as you play out your different stories, it'll tell you. So on the board, there are different tokens you can grab, and you don't have to grab these tokens. It's not always required that you take everything on the board. But if I go to this particular encounter, then something might happen, but if I go to this one, something else might happen. And the board and the book really take you all the way through that. It's a fantastic game. Again, one my daughter really, really enjoys. Again, by Plaid Hat Games, which this isn't the first Plaid Hat game you will see on my list, but it is ages 7 and up, and I feel that's pretty appropriate. It is a heavier game for a 7-year-old, I will give it that. It's for 2 to 4 players. I wish there was a solo mode of this, because I think that a solo mode of Stuffed Fables would be fantastic. And it plays in 60 to 90 minutes, depending on your story that you're running through. It comes with a bunch of different stories, and when I say it comes with stories, I mean there's literal, you read the story and then you play out what happens, and based on what you do could change the story completely, and you won't go through every page of the book. Some pages you'll completely skip because the way you decided to run the story is completely different. So you could play through this game multiple times and play it completely differently. In fact, we have done that. We've played through the game once already. We're on our second playthrough of it, and it's a little bit different. We made some strategic changes to make sure we were hitting different things, and we're doing pages of the book that we didn't do last time, which is awesome. So it does have some replay value. That is one of my pet peeves when it comes to story-based games, is if there's no replayability there, you play the game and you're done, and really what's the point with replay? But this one, you have some replay. Not a ton of replay. I would like them to maybe come out with another book maybe with some new characters. You don't need, I mean, you have all the stuff here already, so you really don't need a ton of stuff. Maybe just some more stories would be great. And that's probably why it falls so low on my list, is just because we don't get to the table very much because it is a bigger game, but also because we've gone through it once already, and we are going through it again. We are getting different things, but a lot of it is the same. It does feel a little samey, but again, the game is fantastic. So that is my number 48, Stuffed Fables. My number 47 is a really easy game to play. I don't know if I would consider this a party game, but it is a tile-laying game, and it is a tile-laying game that I can actually get a lot of people. I think my mom even learned this game, and she doesn't really like games as much as I do, but she learned this game, she told me about it, and she's willing to play it. So that is Quirkle. This game is my version's by Mindware, which I don't really know if they do any other games. I don't have any other games by them, but it's 2 to 4 players, ages 6+. That's pretty accurate in my opinion, but it is a tile-laying game. So what you are doing is lining up shapes and colors and creating this design on the table. And every line in the game, there's like different lines that you are creating, rows I should say rather. Rows have to consist of either, there are 6 shapes in the game with 6 different colors, so it either has to be all the same shape in one of each color, or all the same color in the 6 different shapes. And once you've reached all 6 of either of those, you score what's called a Quirkle, where you get bonus points. And we literally just, it's really fun in this game. You get around to the table and you're just, figuring out what to do, and all of a sudden you're sitting there quiet because you know that there's a Quirkle coming up, and you just quietly like, oh, Quirkle, and the entire table just goes, oh, I can't believe you got a Quirkle. My daughter is, again, 9 years old, really good at this game. She is, for whatever reason, she just dominates when we play this game. I mean, scoring just hundreds and hundreds of points. I have a very hard time beating her. I have beaten her, but I have a very hard time beating her with this particular game, just because she loves it so much and we play it so often, and she's really, really good at this. Like, I guess we could call it like an abstract tile-laying game, but she's really good at it, and it's a fantastic little game. A good filler game. It doesn't take that long. There's no like time frame that they wrote on the game, it looks like some of the other ones. But I would say play this maybe half hour, 45 minutes. It doesn't take long. Good filler game. And that is my number 47, Quirkle. My number 46 is a game that comes in a variety of versions. I happen to have one specific version that I like, but the base game is really great too. I don't have the base game. I only have this version of the game. It is a party game. It's the first party game on the list. Won't be the last though. And when I first heard about this game, I was so against it. I was like, it looks so stupid. You're just naming words and whatever. Like, oh, okay, cool, trying to find some words, that's great. But then I played it because my daughter and my wife really wanted this game. And so we got it and we played it, and it's actually really, really fun. And that is Codenames. Specifically, the version we have is Disney Codenames. I have played the regular version though as well, which is fine. We just happen to have the Disney version. They play exactly the same. It's just kind of like choose your flavor. There's also like a Harry Potter version, a Simpsons version. There's a bunch of different versions out there. There's a 2-player version. There's a pictures version. I mean, just a ton of variations. Again, we like the Disney version. The cool thing we like about this version is there is words on one side of the cards and then pictures on the other side. So you could actually do kind of 2 different versions of the game itself right there, and we love Disney. It's not going to be the last Disney game you see on the list either. But basically in this game you have 2 teams, and one person is the clue giver, and they have a little tile in front of them that tells them which tiles on the grid that you are looking at belong to your team. Of course, your team doesn't know which ones belong to them. They have to try to guess. So in this particular case with Disney, you might have a picture of Lightning McQueen, a picture of Lady and the Tramp, and a picture of Buzz Lightyear, and those all belong to you. And you have to try to get them to guess those with giving as few clues as possible. So I could say, I don't even know what I would say for this. Red 2, maybe, because the picture on the back of the box shows Lady and the Tramp. They're eating some meatballs. There's a lot of red in that picture, red tablecloth, and Lightning McQueen is red. That gives them 2 guesses at any point to guess anything they want. They can keep guessing as long as they are finding things that belong to their team. If they find something that belongs to the other team, then it becomes their turn, and they actually don't we don't score. The other team scores, and we just did them a favor. But there's also a hidden assassin among the cards. Actually, I don't know in this game if it's called an assassin. Yeah, I think it's called something else. But basically, in the base game, it's called an assassin. If you find the assassin, your team immediately loses. And it's really just great fun. Again, get the version that you think your gaming group or family would like the best. This is the one that we particularly like, and that's Disney. But overall, that is Codenames, and that is my number 46. My number 45 is a heavier game, and you wouldn't think it's as heavy as it is just by looking at it because the art is super cute. And you would think this is kind of a kid's game or a family midweight game. It is not. It is heavy. Although my family enjoys it, it is heavy. But I love it. And the reason it's so low on my list is probably because it is so heavy, and it does take some convincing to get people to play. But that is my number 45, Dungeon Pets. This game is fantastic. It is by CGE, and it is 2 to 4 players. Which I wish there was a solo version of this game too, because that would just be phenomenal. It is ages 10 and up, and I even think that's being a little generous. My daughter's 9 years old. She understands the game fine, but there are it is a heavy worker placement game. And not like super duper, like, oh my gosh, like super heavy, but it is a heavier one, especially for a family, one that's geared towards family and kids. It's pretty heavy. And it plays in about 90 minutes. I would say 90 minutes to 2 hours, depending on your player count and the how familiar people are, I can't talk to familiar people are with worker placement games and heavier games in general. But in this game, it is, like I said, it's a worker placement game, and you own like a mythical pet shop where you are trying to raise up these really cool looking pet monsters, and they are just so cool looking. There's like a cyclops thing with a horn. There's like a vampire bunny looking thing. There's a couple of dinosaur looking things. There's like a rhino. I kid you not, it's like a rhino with blonde hair. We call him like Owen Wilson Rhino because like he just kind of gives off that vibe. It's just kind of cool. Anyway, but there's a bunch of cool things, a bunch of cool animals and monsters. And what you're doing is you're raising them up to eventually sell at your pet store. And the way to do that is you send your workers out. They're little imps, like these little goblin-looking creatures, and you send them out to collect different things like cages or food, because you have to take care of these animals. So you have to feed them, you have to clean up after them. There are poop tokens. You have to make sure they don't mutate. But all the while you're trying to impress customers and judges because you can enter them in exhibitions. And it's fantastic. The tricky part about this game that not a lot of people seem to grasp, I've introduced this game to a few people, and the biggest thing that people have a hard time grasping is you don't just, in most worker placement games, you take your little worker, you put them out on the board, you take whatever it is from that space, which is fine. In this one, you have a little player board that has a little, basically a little curtain, a little part of the board that folds up. And when that folds up, you take your little guys and you bet on how many you want to place in different areas. You don't have to assign them to the specific areas quite yet, but you do have to decide how many you're going to send out in how many different groups. You also have money that you can send with them to kind of get them ahead of the game, and basically that determines who goes first, where you get to go, which is fantastic. There is a version of this game with 2 players as a dummy player or a neutral player, where it blocks certain areas, and I love playing that way. It's usually the way I play is with 2 players, myself and my daughter, and we play and we get a lot done with that because that's great. But it gives another level to the game, another level of thinking to the game, which I love. But Dungeon Pets is fantastic. If you've never played Dungeon Pets, you may have heard of Dungeon Lords, which was this is the sequel to Dungeon Lords. I have not played Dungeon Lords. I'd be willing to give it a shot, but I've watched some playthroughs and I've seen, I think Dungeon Pets is the way to go if you're going to pick between the two. The story doesn't matter. There's no story between the two games. You can play one and not the other, but Dungeon Pets is definitely the way to go. It's this low on my list at 45 just because of how heavy it is. Sometimes we have to keep referring back to the rule book. I wish there was a little bit of a better player aid with it, but once you get going and you're in the groove and you understand, oh yeah, that's right, I do this and this, and you get the sequence of events going, really, really fun, really easy, and it's not incredibly long. It's a little bit on the longer side, but not too bad. It's only about an hour and a half to 2 hours, and that is every reason and more why Dungeon Pets is my number 45. My number 44 is a game about flowers, which normally would not appeal to me. But it's a small little card game about flowers, and that is called Lotus. This game is so bizarre, and I say that not in a bad way, but it's bizarre because it's not a game I would typically enjoy just because of the theming. Like that, I wouldn't be attracted to me about flowers. But what happened was my daughter and I, we went to our local game store, and we just go there to play games. They had this in their library, and one of their workers actually recommended this game to us, and we played it. I was like, we can play it, that's fine. We played it, and my daughter fell in love with it, so we ended up getting it, and it's great. It really works well. The concept of the game is you have cards in your hand, and they are different flower petals, and you're trying to build different flowers. Each flower requires a different amount of petals. And the game does a really good job of making sure you remember how many petals each flower takes. You also have little bugs that come in your player color that you can put out on the flower, basically to say, yes, I believe this is going to score soon, and I want to get bonus points for that flower once it scores. It's great. You also have special abilities you can unlock throughout the game, so you can up your hand limit, you can get a bonus bug, stuff like that, and it's just so much fun. It only takes about 30 minutes to play. Really quick game. It's by Renegade Games, and it is ages 8 and up, and I would say even maybe 6 or 7-year-olds could understand this, depending on their understanding of more complex games, apart from like the mass market ones. It plays with 2 to 4 players. Really great game, and the artwork is beautiful. I mean, you can't look at this box and be like, hey, you know, that artwork is awful. That artwork is beautiful. The reason it's a little bit lower on my list, this used to be higher up on my list, it's just we don't play it as much as we used to because now we're playing some of those heavier games. But it's still a fantastic game. It might fall off my list next year, I'm not sure, because it is towards that bottom. It all depends, but Lotus, my number 44. My number 43 is a game that my daughter would probably have ranked in her top 10. It's a great family game, super easy to teach, and it's actually the second edition. I never played the first edition, but it's a second edition racing and betting game. And that is Camel Up. I've also heard it pronounced Camel Cup, but I believe it is Camel Up. And I love this game. So you have a group of camels in different colors racing around a track, and you are trying to bet on which color camel is going to win the race. And each camel can be stacked on top of the other camel, which means that if they get stacked on top of the camel and the camel below them wants to move, the whole stack moves. It's really cool. There's also a black and a white camel that move the track backwards. So if those move, those could move your camels backwards. And you also have the ability to move camels forward and backwards a little bit too. But basically there's this really cool mechanism where it's a pyramid, and you take the top off and you put all the colored dice in there. There's one colored dice for each camel. And you place that in there, and you shake it up, and then there's a button on the side, and you hit it, and then a dice pops out the bottom. Really cool randomizing mechanism, and it's a gimmick, but it's really cool. I mean, there's a pop-up board in here with a big palm tree. It's a gimmick, but it's really cool, really gorgeous board too. But then you take that die, you move the camel the amount that it shows, and then you set that die to the side. Once 5 dice have been rolled, that leg ends. But the other things you can do on your turn is bet who do you think is going to be in the lead for that particular leg and score bonus points. And you want to get as much money as you can, because the person at the end who has the most money is going to win. This is by Eggert Spiel. I think I said that right, Eggert Spiel. And it is 8+, probably right on the money there. We've had this game for a couple years. My daughter played it, I think, when she was like 6 or 7. You know, it's great family fun. It says 3 to 8 players. I disagree. You can play it with 2 because we play it with 2 all the time. And it says 30 minutes, which is about right. With a 2-player game, I mean, we get this thing done in like 20. It's real fast. But it's so much fun. If you like easy, lightweight family games, just something to bring to the table, just to, you know, like before dinner and putting your kids to bed, you just want something to do, this is an excellent game. It also has a really good insert to keep all your pieces organized, which I love. But yeah, I've never played the first edition, so I couldn't tell you, but this is the edition that's available now. Again, my number 43, Camel Up. Number 42, really fun little card game. It's a take that game, and it is a game a lot of people dislike. And I think that's why it's so low on my list, because not a lot of people want to play this game. I've pulled out and they're like, really, we're going to play that? All right. But we always have a good time. But it is a take that game. Not my favorite mechanic. And it is a game that a lot of people don't put on their lists because it's not really that well liked anymore. But the art is hilarious, and I still really enjoy it. And that is Munchkin. Now, I have the base game of Munchkin, and this is Munchkin Deluxe, so it has the board and the standees and things like that. But Munchkin is so funny. Basically, the object of the game is you are trying to get to level 10, and you start at level 1 before everybody else. And you do that by going in and defeating monsters. The catch is you also have different available items that you can use in your hands that you get from defeating other monsters and from the start of the game. And the trick to the game, which I love, is that the other people in the game, although they're playing for themselves, they can help you, which is great. They can just be like, yeah, I have this item, I'll give it to you, I'll help you, but I want some of that treasure you're going to get. Which sometimes that's great. Sometimes it's like, okay, cool, yeah, I'll help you. You're helping me, I'll help you. Scratch my back, I'll scratch yours type of situation. But then, of course, they can also use those items against you. So if you have a level 5 monster, they can play a card, maybe make that a level 10 monster or a level 15 monster and do all these different modifiers, which just makes it so much more interesting. It's, the back of the game says, kick down a door, fight a monster, grab the treasure. Simple when you put it that way, but it's not quite as simple. But it's a fantastic little card game. There are Munchkin tournaments out there that people just go crazy for, and the game is well loved. Just not as much as maybe either it used to be, or because it's a take that game, some people don't like some people take it personal. I played this game and they're like, man, I just don't like being attacked like that. It's a take that game. That's what you do. You go after each other. But it's hard for me to get to the table. This is from Steve Jackson Games, and it is for, trying to get a player count on here. I believe it's for 2 to however many you have players. It doesn't say. But, at least, not that I can see. Unless it's on the front and I just can't see it. Nope, but it is by Steve Jackson Games. I would probably rate this 10 plus maybe age. That'd be my personal rating, just because there is a lot of reading involved. That might be even being a little generous, but about 10 plus. There's a lot of reading involved in these a lot of math. But I mean, it's pretty basic. Just a cool little card game. I've played it with 2 players. Not as fun as with 4. I've played it with 4 plus, and that's fun too. But yeah, that is my number 42, Munchkin. And finally, number 41 to cap off this portion of the list, and that is a really cool tile laying game. If you are into modern designer board games at all, I'm sure you heard of it. It probably doesn't even need an introduction because I said tile laying, but that is Carcassonne from Z-Man Games. That's the version I have. It is 2 to 5 players, 7 plus, which is about accurate, and plays in about 35 minutes. It's awesome. You are building the French countryside of Carcassonne, and you also have these little meeples in your hand, and you can place them in cities to try to build a city to get points. You can place them in a farm and get farming points. You can place them on a road. You can place them on a monastery and get points different ways. When my daughter was first learning this game, all we did was take out the farming rule. There's a big farming rule at the end where it's it's a very spacious version of scoring, which you basically have to look and be like, okay, where do these farms end up? And for kids, that can sometimes be a little difficult. I don't really like playing with that rule, but I do it. It's just kind of a pain in the butt. But it's still a very, very fun aspect of the game. And we just took that out when she was learning the game, so it was just one thing less to worry about. And we've been slowly introducing her into the farming portion of the game. But basically, on your turn, you pick a tile, you lay it down. And then you decide, do I want to place a meeple on that tile or not? And it's so great because it's so simple. I've taught this game to so many people. Just like, hey, it's real quick, just lay a tile. And the best way to teach this game is just to do it. Just all you got to do is say, you're going to flip over a tile, you're going to connect it to where it can connect on the board. Just look for things of similar color, connect it, and if it's a city, you can put a person on there. If it's a road, you can put a person on there. If it's a monastery, you just give them very basics. And as you go, say, all right, this is going to score when all of these tiles are on. This is going to score when it connects to another road, that kind of stuff. And that's the best way I found to teach it. It's gone over really well with people I've played games with. and it's a classic. It is an absolute classic, and that is my number 41, Carcassonne. So that's going to do it for the first portion of this list, number 50 through 41. Again, we're counting down the top 50 games of all time, so we've got a long way to go. There are 5 sections to this list, 5 different videos. So if the videos have already been released, go ahead and just go to the next video. If not, it will be released soon, and you'll be able to see the next portion of the list. I'm really looking forward to bringing all sorts of board gaming content. We're going to be doing some playthroughs, maybe some solo gaming, maybe with some other people on the channel. We'll see how that goes. But basically, I'm so excited to bring you some board gaming content. So, I want to thank you all for watching. This has been Sean, and this has been Instant Gameplay.